The Cuyahoga County Community Development Committee meeting is now called to order. Ashley, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Jones.
Here.
President Brady.
Here.
Mr. Hauser is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
We have a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is also in attendance.
Thank you, Ashley. In fact, has anyone signed in for public comment?
No, no one is signed in.
All right. Committee, can we have an approval for our minutes from the April 2nd meeting?
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. We have one item on our agenda today, a resolution concerning our casino tax revenue dollars. Ashley, would you please read that resolution into the ordinance into the record, please?
Ordinance number 2018-0005, amending Title VII of the Cuyahoga County Code to clarify requirements regarding the use of casino tax revenue and update programs funded by such revenue.
And can we have someone speak to this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Khalil Sarin, Cuyahoga County Council staff. This ordinance is sort of a three-part ordinance. It's got three major functions. The first function is in Section 1. It renames the Casino Revenue Fund the Community Development Fund, and the purpose of this renaming is to really reflect both how the fund was intended to be used and how it was envisioned when it was created, and the types of uses that this fund is intended for, and also to reflect the actual substance of the section, which indicates that this fund should be used for economic community development, and also the possibility of using it for educational initiatives. So that community development fund is a bit more reflective of the purpose of the fund and allows us to move away from sort of thinking of it as this casino revenue fund as though it's some sort of windfall fund, which it isn't. It is a tax on a business activity, and these funds have been earmarked by council for particular purposes. The second piece of the legislation is to update this section, that's section 709, chapter 709 of the code, to eliminate some of the outdated pieces of that section of code. So the dated portions, including the revenues in reserve portion, can be stricken because this doesn't apply anymore. We are well after 2014, which was the date by which you could stop holding revenues in reserve. The use for the downtown district development portion is also out of date. This was a time-limited section that ended in 2016. So this portion can be stricken as well because it no longer applies. And then funds used after 2016, after July of 2016, this portion is now amended to eliminate the dated portion, or the time-based portion, because at this point we are well after July 2016, and so the funds in the Community Development Fund, as so renamed, will have these particular uses that council outlined as their use from 2016 going forward. And of course, the request for early spending is no longer applicable either, as we are well after the portion of time where spending would have to be requested for early spending while you were keeping revenues in reserve, or while you were restricting the use of these revenues for the downtown district. And then the third portion of this ordinance is to take the Community Development Supplemental Grant Program and extend that program beyond the original 2 years that it was initially authorized for. So it was initially authorized through 2016 and 2017. The money would be budgeted in 2016 and 2017, and that budgeted money was then used for projects approved in 2017 and 2018. And this piece of the ordinance would extend the time period of this program through 2019, so that money would be budgeted this year and next year for projects that would then take place after that. And if there are any questions about this ordinance or larger questions about either of these programs, I can take those questions.
Thank you, Khalil. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. President?
more of a comment. I had a little something to do with initiating this legislation. Fortunately, for this morning, all four of us have been here since the very first day that we started receiving community development funds. And I remember every single step that you just recited quite clearly. So I really don't have any questions, but I'm interested to see what others may have to say. This is just cleaning up what we've been trying to collectively decide how to appropriately use, and we've been doing that for quite some time, from the time we waited till the fund was had enough in it to do something with it, of course, but also to set aside some time for money that would be spent in downtown development. And in that process, there were members who were anxious for that money to eventually be out into the community. And we moved forward and did that as well. And so this is one more step in a series of steps to oversee this money and allocate it effectively. There was a lot of discussion and debate along the way about what we might or might not do with the funds, but at least for right now, we seem to have pretty good consensus around it. So I hope that this legislation will be supported, unless someone can just point out to me what we've done wrong or what Khalil's done wrong.
Thank you, Mr. President. And you're right. We've been here from the beginning. We've seen this. We've seen the evolution of this from the very beginning, and it's the name change is appropriate, from casino revenue dollars to community development. Khalil, could you take a moment and just to get on the record, how much money do we have in the casino revenue, the community development fund at this moment?
Okay, so the way that it's set up right now, we've got about $200,000 in that fund. The agreement that was crafted between the legislative and executive branches allowed for $4 million of these funds to be transferred into I'm not sure what they're calling it at this point, either the Western Reserve or the Economic Development Fund or the Job Creation Fund. It's had multiple names in the Department of Development. So this agreement it's a budget, during the budget cycle, there was a thought that $4 million of these funds would be moved into the Department of Development's budget for their projects, and the remainder of the funds would remain in this fund for use as dictated by council. And so right now, after that $4 million transfer, there is $201,931.60 currently as the ongoing balance, but we anticipate I guess $4 or $5 million to be received into this fund throughout the rest of the year.
The amount that comes in from the casino tax to the county. Now, we know the city of Cleveland, others get their share. Share with me again, what is the amount that actually flows to the county government?
Well, technically, we don't always know. It's variable, but I believe the forecast for this is maybe 8 or 9 million. I would defer to our legislative budget advisor to provide a little bit more on the budgetary aspect of it.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Trevor Mackler, County Council staff. Typically, in a year, we take about $8 million in from the casino revenue. Again, as Khalil mentioned, we split about 50-50 with the Economic Development Fund is what I think is what they're calling it now. So, and we get distributions every quarter. So we already transferred the 4 million that was agreed upon for the 2018 fiscal year to the Economic Development Fund. So we are anticipating about 4 more million to come this year, which would sit in the Community Development Fund if this legislation gets approved.
So quarterly, those dollars will flow in, and the method of distribution is economic development and then the community development fund. And the full 4 million of the first half went into the economic development
Correct.
department?
Because we began the year with a balance, a significant balance. So we know that in terms of when cash is coming in and cash is going out, we could transfer that the full 4 million into the Economic Development Fund in the first quarter of this year, because we know we don't have any cash going out right now out of the Community Development Fund.
Okay. Councilman Miller.
Just a comment that the supplemental CDBG program has proven to be an effective and popular program, and definitely worthy of being continued. It's something that has allowed us to put money out there for creative neighborhood enhancing projects of wide variety and widely distributed geographically throughout the county. Thank you.
It certainly has. You made a comment earlier about education and community development. Elaborate a little more on the education aspect of this community development.
Sure.
Fund.
So the legislation, when it was originally conceived, included 3 separate uses. Well, or initially it was just 2 separate uses, and community development was added by council a bit later. But initially it was to promote economic development in any area of Cuyahoga County and to provide additional funding for educational initiatives, including the Cuyahoga County Educational Assistance Program. And council saw fit to include a specific addition of community development as an allowable use for this fund as well. So at this point, it is up to council to determine whether or not there are any particular educational initiatives that council would seek to fund using this fund, but that is one of the allowable uses that council has determined for these funds.
Great. Any further questions? If not, I will make a motion that we move this ordinance to the full council. Second reading suspension, does it matter?
It completely up to the committee. I don't have a preference.
Okay. We'll let it go through the full reading. It's an ordinance. We'll go full reading. Okay. All right. Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. 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 Ayes have it. All right. Thank you very much, Khalil. Is there any miscellaneous business? All right. If not, nothing else holds our attention. This meeting is adjourned.